5 bài học quý báu từ Warren Buffett trong Đại hội Cổ Đông năm 2023.
Mr. Buffett, Mr. Munger, it seems like you found the sweet spot between being too conservative and too aggressive as investors. Do you ever make bad investment decisions because of your emotions? And what do you do to try to keep that from happening?
Well, we make bad investment decisions plenty of times. I make more than Charlie because I like to think it's because I make more decisions, but probably my batting average is worse. But I can't recall any time in the history of Berkshire that we made an emotional decision. That I know the movie had Jamie Lee in there, but that was for laughs. I mean, Jamie Lee, she's good, but she's not good enough to get me or Charlie to make an emotional decision. Yeah. Charlie, I'm sure you have something to add on that.
Well, it's a different movie that is shown at most corporate meetings.
Yeah. But have we ever made an emotional decision?
No.
Oh, yeah. That's in business we're talking about. Yeah. No, you don't want to be a no emotion person in all of your life, but you definitely want to be a no emotion person in making an investment or business decision. That you can argue that we probably, I would say that we've made an emotional decision perhaps, and when a manager has been with us for some period, and we've ignored the fact that perhaps they weren't quite what they were earlier. But our businesses are so good that they run better sometimes. I've talked about Wesco, for example, the wonderful Louisville incentive, and it ran on automatic pilot for a while, but I don't think we suffered by it. But you can argue that if Charlie and I hadn't liked Louis as much as we did, we might have spotted it a little bit early, but I don't think it made any difference in the results. Would you agree with that, Charlie?
Yeah, I agree totally with it. And I'm glad we behaved the way we did at Wesco. By the way, we bought the thing for a few tens of millions and it became worth 2 or 3 billion.
Yeah, that wasn't common in the savings and loan business, as you may have noticed. They really went crazy in that industry, and we had a wonderful guy in Louis. And
we didn't go crazy.
The question is to Charlie and Warren. Given the rise of disruptive technologies that can improve productivity significantly, and AI being one of them, how do you envision the future of value investing in this new era? And what adaptations or new principles do you think investors should adopt? And any recommendations for investors to remain successful in this rapid changing landscape? Thank you.
Well, I'm glad to take that one. I think value investors are going to have a harder time now that there's so many of them competing for a diminished bunch of opportunities. So my advice to value investors is to get used to making less.
And Charlie has been telling me the same thing the whole time we've known each other. I mean, we get along wonderfully because...
So we are making less.
Yeah, well, but that mostly, I think, is because it's larger.
When we were younger.
No, we never thought we could manage 508 billion.
No,
or whatever. But I would argue that there's going to be plenty of opportunities. And part of the reason there are going to be plenty of opportunities, the tech doesn't make any difference or any of that. I mean, if you look at how the world's changed in the years since 1942 when I started, you'd say, well, how does a kid that doesn't know anything about airplanes, that doesn't know anything about engines and cars, and doesn't know anything about electricity and all that. But that really isn't that's not the world changing doesn't, or new things coming along don't take away the opportunities. What gives you opportunities is other people doing dumb things. And it's that. And I would say that, well, the 58 years we've been running Berkshire, I would say there's been a great increase in the number of people doing dumb things, and they do big dumb things. And the reason they do it to some extent is because they can get money from other people so much easier than when we started. So you could start 10 or 15 dumb insurance companies in the last 10 years, and you could become rich if you were a droid at it, succeeded or not, and the underwriters got paid, and the lawyers got paid, and that creates, if that's done on a large scale, which it couldn't be done 58 years ago, you couldn't get the money to do some of the dumb things that we wanted to do, fortunately. So I think that investing has disappeared so much from this huge capitalistic market that anybody can play in, but that the big money is in selling other people ideas. It isn't outperforming. And I think if you don't run too much money, which we do, but if you're running small amounts of money, I think the opportunities will be greater. But then Charlie and I have always differed on this subject. He likes to tell me how gloomy the world is, and I like to tell him we'll find something. And so far we've both been kind of right. Charlie, wouldn't you? Will you budge an inch on that or not?
There is so much money now in the hands of so many smart people, all trying to outsmart one another and outpromote one another, getting more money out of other people. And it's a radically different world from the world we started in. And I suppose it will have its opportunities, but it's also going to have some unpleasant episodes.
Companies need to choose between short-term profits and long-term defensibility. For example, Amazon was focused on building their famous Amazon flywheel with limited profits initially in order to obtain stronger network effects with the hope of getting more defensible profits in the future. When you invest, you constantly speak about the importance of building competitive moats. What advice would you give to CEOs about how to balance this dilemma, which is essentially short-term profits versus long-term defensibility? Thank you.
Well, the answer is to control your destiny, which we've been able to do at Berkshire. So we feel no pressure from Wall Street. We don't have investor calls. We don't have to make promises. We get a chance to make our own mistakes and occasionally find something that works well. But we recognize that the people in this room and people like them are the ones that we're working for, and we're not working for a bunch of people that care about whether we meet the quarter estimate or anything. So we have a freedom that we get to use, and we're interested in owning a wonderful business forever. Well, there aren't very many wonderful businesses, but we do learn a lot as we go along. Charlie and I have often mentioned how we learned so much when we bought See's Candy, which we did. But we learned when we bought Ben Rosser's chain of women's dress shops spread all over the eastern part of the country. We learned when we tried getting into the department store business back in 1966, and as the ink was drying on our purchase price, we realized we'd done something dumb. We're learning all the time how consumers behave. I'm not going to be able to learn the technical aspects of businesses, but that'd be nice if I knew it, but it isn't essential. And we are obviously we've got a business at Apple which is larger than our energy business, and we may only own 5.6 or 7%, but our ownership goes up every year. And I don't understand the phone at all, but I do understand consumer behavior.
This is for Warren and Greg. Since 2019, Berkshire repurchased huge amounts of stock, about approximately reducing 10% of the share count and increasing the intrinsic value per share for the continuing shareholders. Greg is expected to be the successor of Warren as CEO, so will he be in charge of the main capital allocation decisions, including future share buybacks? Greg has been key in the development of Berkshire Hathaway Energy, and I think a good capital allocator. Has he been involved in the share repurchases that have been executed over the past years? And do you, both Warren and Greg, work together in the estimation of Berkshire's intrinsic value and the share buyback decisions?
Well, the answer is that Greg, I'm going to turn it over to him, but the answer is Greg understands capital allocation as well as I do, and that's lucky for us. And he will make those decisions, I think, very much in the same framework as I would make them. And we've laid out that framework now for 30 years, probably, or something like that. People make it way more complicated. I mean, particularly if you're working on a doctorate or something, it's just a great subject to have lots of footnotes and 50 pages or 100 pages. But it's no more simple. It's no more complicated than if you and I and Charlie had a business and you wanted to sell your interest, and we could buy it for less than we thought it was worth, and without misleading you in any way about what was going on, and we'd buy it. But Greg, you're on because you're going to be doing it in the future.
Right. Yeah, well, I think, Warren, you said it really well. I mean, the framework's been laid out. We know how you approach it, and how you and Charlie have approached it, and really don't see that framework changing. When the opportunity presents itself, we'll want to be an active repurchaser of Berkshire shares. We think it's a great outcome for Berkshire shareholders to own a larger piece of each of our operating businesses and the portfolio of the equity companies when the opportunity presents itself.
It can be the dumbest thing you can do, or it can be the smartest thing you can do. And to make it more complicated than that and start getting into all this. But you obviously do what the business needs to do first. The opportunities are there. Grow your present business, buy additional business, whatever it may be. And then you make a decision on dividends, but that decision becomes pretty irrevocable because you don't cut dividends without having major effects in your shareholder base and a lot of things. And then if you got ample capital and you don't see that you're going to use it all, and your stock is attractive and it enhances the intrinsic value for the remaining shareholders, it's a no-brainer. And if it's above the price of intrinsic value, it's a no-brainer that you don't even listen to anybody, no matter what investment banker comes in and tells you, here's how to do a repurchase program.
5 bài học quý báu trong Đại hội Cổ Đông 2023. Trong quyết định đầu tư, việc loại bỏ hoàn toàn yếu tố cảm xúc là vô cùng cần thiết. Cơ hội sẽ ít dần đi và hiệu quả đầu tư sẽ giảm trong bối cảnh công nghệ đột phá và AI đang phát triển mạnh. Tin rằng cơ hội cho những nhà đầu tư theo giá trị vẫn còn tồn tại, cho những sai lầm trong quyết định đầu tư của thị trường. Hãy tự do và độc lập trong chiến lược đầu tư của mình. Trước khi mua lại cổ phiếu của công ty mình, ưu tiên đầu tiên là đáp ứng nhu cầu của công ty, phát triển công ty hiện tại và mua các công ty mới. Cảm ơn các bạn đã lắng nghe. Nếu các bạn thấy video có giá trị, hãy đăng ký kênh của mình và theo dõi những video mới nhé.